Welcome back, everybody. We've been following the investigation into Rex Heuermann, the man suspected of killing multiple women found on Long Island's Gilgo Beach. Well, this week it was announced that another arrest has been made, but this time it's a law enforcement official. That's right. James Burke was the Suffolk County police chief from 2012 to 2015, overseeing the investigation into the Gilgo Beach case. 11 bodies have been found along the Long Island coastline since 2010, and Heuermann, a Manhattan architect by day and alleged predator by night, was charged with 3 of the murders this summer. Well, Burke was heavily criticized by other law enforcement officials for his handling of the case over a decade ago. They claimed he blocked the department from cooperating with the FBI and ultimately botched the investigation. And Burke's troubles really didn't stop there, because following Burke's resignation, federal prosecutors charged him with beating a handcuffed man and covering up the attack. That man was suspected of stealing sex-related material from Burke's department SUV. Also arrested in connection to the cover-up were the county's longtime district attorney and, ironically, the county's top corruption prosecutor. Burke served 40 months in federal prison and was released in 2019. Fast forward to Tuesday, when Burke was arrested again, but this time for allegedly attempting to engage in sex acts with an undercover park ranger. Current Suffolk County Police Chief Rodney A. Harrison said a sting operation was carried out after several complaints of solicitation at the Vietnam Veterans Memorial Park on Long Island. During Burke's arrest, officials say he even tried to leverage his former title as a way to get out of it. Burke's charged with offering a sex act, public lewdness, indecent exposure, and criminal solicitation. An arraignment date has yet to be announced. So Terry, could Burke's arrest compromise this entire investigation?
I think so, and even worse than that, I think it could compromise the arrest of Rex Heuermann, because here you have someone who is overseeing the entire investigation, and he's now been charged with all of these crimes, and the sex crimes particularly. If in fact it's connected, then maybe the investigation was compromised. Maybe he was covering up things because he didn't want anything to lead back to him. And when I say he, I mean Burke. So I definitely think that it's a big problem. They obviously are going to have to go back and look at the evidence that has been collected to make sure they have the right evidence. In fact, some of that in court could be all thrown out because there could be some tainted evidence there. So I think this is a big problem for the entire case.
Well, let's just break this down for a second. So he gets arrested back in the day for beating up a guy for having his sex-related material. By the way, overseeing a case about multiple women killed where there's a sexual component possibly. And then he gets arrested again on sex-related charges. It's quite the headline, but you heard Terry say how it might affect Rex Heuermann's trial. What's your take on how it might affect his trial?
It's definitely going to affect it. I might even go as far as pointing the finger at him, because he is the original detective who gets to pick who to question, who to investigate, where to go. As a defense attorney, I'm planting the seed of, how do we know that these are the sex workers we should be talking to? How do we know that these are the leads we should have been investigating? Maybe he's pointing us down the wrong path because we should be looking at something else. How do we know that his involvement with sex workers goes just at solicitation? I think if the defense can find something even good enough, maybe even point the finger to him being the person that are killing and burying these bodies.
Well, the only thing, the counter argument to that is he wasn't in charge when Rex Heuermann was arrested.
From 2012 to 2015, he was a large part of the investigation that I think they used to lead up to it. So it's like a fruit of the poisonous tree argument or anything else. If the roots of the tree are bad, how can you use anything of the fruit?
You agree?
Yeah, I do. I actually agree, because I think even though he wasn't in charge when Heuermann was arrested, all of that information that they gathered while they were investigating was something that Burke had a piece of, and he could have been trying to direct it in the wrong direction. I definitely think it's a good defense argument.
It's funny that Terry says she actually agrees with you, Brian, because there are
once
times
in a while.
Once in a blue moon. All right, when we come back, a 19-year-old finds out if she can attend college in person after being charged with killing her newborn baby and hiding his body in a trash can. It is the case of L&C Trevizo. That's next. All right, we're finishing today's show back in New Mexico, where a pretrial hearing took place for the 19-year-old accused of killing her newborn son in a hospital bathroom and hiding his body in a trash can. Now, we first told you about the hearing on Tuesday. L&C Trevizo is charged with first-degree murder, child abuse, and tampering with evidence in connection to the incident in late January. Trevizo went to the hospital with back pain, allegedly not knowing she was pregnant. But 24 hours later, hospital staff found the body of Trevizo's son in a bathroom trash can. An autopsy ruled the baby's death a homicide, apparently dying from a lack of oxygen. But defense attorneys argue that Trevizo's son was in fact stillborn and the baby's death was actually a result of hospital malpractice. In Tuesday's hearing, multiple motions were addressed ahead of Trevizo's October trial, including a request to change the conditions of her pretrial release so that she can attend college in the fall. Trevizo is not allowed to have contact with her boyfriend, who attends the same university, but the defense argues that their relationship wasn't tumultuous enough to restrict Trevizo from attending classes in person. So let's hear what the judge ultimately decided.
I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to modify the conditions of release. I'll allow her to go. It's New Mexico State in Las Cruces, right?
That's correct, Your Honor, it is.
Big university, huge. I don't know what the student count is, but I'm sure it's several thousand. Las Cruces is a sizable city. Personally, counsel, I'm really trying to get in my mind how you can invoke a domestic violence prohibition against personal contact. First off, nobody's invoked the DV statute. There's been no allegation of domestic violence. I don't think that translates into this. I really don't. My gut reaction is that does not translate. Granted, you can order that anybody who's under charges cannot commit any further criminal acts. And I certainly think that's absolutely reasonable. She should get her conditions revoked if she gets charged with any further criminal acts, but I don't see how the DV statutes can even be applied in this case, notwithstanding what Judge Schubert said originally or anything else.
All right, so Terry, the judge modified the conditions of that. Did she get it right there?
She did get it right, and she's, surprised that the former judge put conditions like that, and I was also surprised. In fact, I was, outraged. I don't think that any judge should say, oh, you cannot go to a university. First of all, she's out. She's released. And you can have conditions that you don't commit another crime or that you don't flee the jurisdiction. But to say that you can't go to this college or that you can't interact with your boyfriend, I think was far too restrictive. So the judge made the right decision. I will say, however, that the defense attorney for Trevizo said, look, we'll make sure that she's got the right advice, the right counseling, that she's not going to get into a relationship, that she's not going to get pregnant again. I think that's wrong. I think it should be up to her boyfriend. It is no one else's decision whether or not she's going to get pregnant again. That's like saying, okay, I'm going to get pregnant again and I'm going to have, I'm going to murder my baby. They can't decide that for her. So I'm still upset that they're willing to put that type of condition on her. I'm happy that they allowed her to go to college where she wants to go, and that they allowed her to have interactions with her boyfriend as long as they don't discuss the case. But I still think that it's a bit draconian to say, yeah, we're going to make sure she is counseled and she doesn't, get pregnant.
So let me ask you a different question, Brian, about the suppression of the statements in this case, suppression of the statements of L&C Trevizo. I think the judge said they need a little bit more information before deciding on that. What would sway the judge one way or another? What kind of evidence, what kind of arguments?
I think for the most part it comes down to how those HIPAA rules of patient-client privilege exists, and also Miranda warnings work. I think for the most part the strongest arguments the prosecution had was that the third party was there, but police can't just interject them, well, they do, but they should not be allowed to just interject themselves into areas where privilege occurs and then say, well, no privilege exists because I'm standing here and I'm not allowed.
The statements at the hospital.
Correct.
Right? Yeah.
And I think what the judge doing, I'm seeing it from how she's talking about what Terry just mentioned about going back to the DV statute, because you actually are allowed to stop people from going to the home, school, place of business, or anywhere a person typically goes when there's DV related issues, because DV statutes allow that. But here the old judge pulled on the DV statute when DV doesn't exist. So this tells me the judge is really trying to make this case bulletproof from an appellate issue standpoint. And so they're looking to see what exactly is this going to hold, or what's the linchpin going to be to say this is why the statement should come in or they shouldn't, because they're such a big part of the case.
It's very eerily similar to the Skylar Richardson case,
Yes,
which we covered here on Law&Crime. We'll see how this ultimately shakes out. Brian, Terry, thank you. Everyone, thanks for joining us. We're going to see you next time as we discuss justice in America.